When you're ready. Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone in Facebook land. Welcome, welcome. We're so excited to have you here with us today. And I'm going to go ahead and switch. Megan, if you can switch your view to speaker view, that might help. I don't think it's my view that's being lived, but yeah. So excited to have you here with us today. Today, we're talking about letting go of expectations. And I want to just give you a little bit of background on why I wanted to do this one. This is definitely not one that a topic that I am covering because I am like super brilliant at it. I'm literally covering this topic because I feel like a lot of the times when we get to the new year, people talk about New Year's resolutions and whatever feelings you have around that, right? Whatever feelings you have around that, oftentimes those feel really heavy, right? Like there's been like an active attempt to stop doing resolutions for many of us. But I actually think in some ways those feel heavy because we have so many expectations already around ourselves. And not that I'm going to go have New Year's resolutions. That isn't ever any part of my plan anymore as a mother. But I might have openings for things that I want to do in my life, right? But in order for me to have that opening, I need to have some space. And when my life is filled up with all these expectations of what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it, and also how everybody else is supposed to act, there's not a whole lot of room in there for me to be open and take on anything new. And that's something that I've discovered over and over and over again in my life. I've been blessed in many ways to have the opportunity to challenge my own expectations. And it didn't always seem like a blessing at the time, but yeah, I have a lot of experience with that. And some of it is because I'm a little bit perfectionist. I don't know if you guys have ever heard me talk about that before, but might have a little bit of perfection in there, a little bit of high expectations for myself. But learning how to let go of some of those so that I can actually live and move and have a little bit more happiness in life is something that I've spent a lot of time doing. So I wanted to chat today about that. And I do have some slides. Let me see if I can share my screen. They're up here somewhere. Let's try this. Let's share this one first. Here we go. Okay. We'll go to present. Yes, go ahead. Start. All right, awesome. Okay. So before we start, if you have access to something to write on, whatever it is, it could be your phone, it could be a pencil and paper, it could be chalk and the ground outside if you were outside with your children, it could really be anything. It might help. Sometimes it helps to write things down when we are trying to think about what expectations we have and how we'd like to move forward. So if you have access to a pencil and paper or something like that, crayons, markers, anything will do. You might want to pull those out. And I want to start with what is an expectation. And I'm hoping that some of you on the call might be willing to pop out and give me some ideas of what you think an expectation is, what it shows up like in your life. And I will give some ideas of how that shows up for me. Anybody?
A pile of dishes sitting next to the sink for 3 days. That's what it's expectation, because it's just sitting there yelling at me quietly. And that applies to the laundry too, and the things around the house that need to be put away. It just silently yells at me from its place in not away.
Yes, totally. I feel that one very deeply, especially the laundry one. Yes. Perfect. Thank you, Jasmine. Jill, did you have one?
Yeah, the constant shoulds. Anytime I hear myself think I should be doing this, or I should do that, it's like those are the expectations, and and trying to figure out where is it coming from. That's a different story, but yes, all the shoulds of things that we feel like we need to be doing.
Absolutely. Anybody else have one? Oh, yeah, Dina, go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it's just this pressure, constant pressure that we put on ourselves, and it can be compounded by comparison, right? Comparing yourself to other people or comparing yourself to what you thought you would be like before you were a mom or at this stage of life, the pressure of those comparisons.
Yeah, the comparison one, that's big. You're totally right. Yeah. Yafi.
Yeah, since I haven't contributed, I was thinking about like the piling on of expectations, like you've got one set of expectations, for instance, being a small business owner, and then the pile on expectations. Why am I busting my butt on this and not making money? I should be making money doing all these other shoulds. So that's just a snowball of guilt.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I feel that one very deeply too. Anyone else?
For me, I think it's like always having to be at my kids' events and just like this kind of type thing, and then feeling bad, like if I, have to miss one of my daughter's basketball games, or things like that. So I think that, and then also just being the same for all my kids. Like my youngest, I still haven't gotten to her photo album. It's still a bag, and she's 2, almost 3. So I haven't done 5 years of photo albums. And so that's like this expectation, like I've got to do this and I've got to do the same thing because all my other kids have photo albums, and how am I going to have a kid that doesn't have one? And that's not fair. And so the guilt and that unrealistic, I guess, idea that I have of myself.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Wow. So many of these are resonating with me. Anybody else? Yes, the photo album.
Second, the unrealistic ideas for ourselves. When I stepped into motherhood and I had my son, I was a clinician at the time practicing in the mental health field. And I was like, no, postpartum depression and anxiety, intrusive thoughts. No, not for me. That can't be me. And I hid it. And I was like, I'm lying to everyone who asks. I am not rating myself accurately on these scales and evaluations. And I have an expectation, like if I work in the field, then this shouldn't impact my personal life the way it should. I should be able to get through it. And so I think that really hits as well.
Totally. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I remember taking the Edinburgh on myself after my husband told me maybe there wasn't something right. And I was like, I'm fine. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Those were all so good, ladies. So yeah, what is an expectation? We've all got them, right? Let's see if I can advance this slide. And where exactly do they come from though, right? Like we can identify them, we know we have them, but where did we get these things? Like what made us come up with these expectations? Dina is laughing, but anybody else? Anyway.
I'm over here like, oh man. So many things create expectations. I think like our childhood, our upbringing, our society, the culture that we live in, social media, our ego, right? We are constantly from every single angle of the world, whatever we look at, especially in today's society, having like technology at our fingertips, we are influenced and we develop these expectations based off of what we see, right? And what we hear, and we feel like we have to fit in some sort of box around it. And that I think our ego steps in, right? And our ego says like, hey, I should be able to, going to the shoulds that someone else shared, I should be able to do this too. So now it's an expectation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody want to add to that?
Accomplishing what my mother accomplished in the house with completely forgetting the fact that she was a stay-at-home mom and had help. But I should be able to accomplish exactly what she accomplished with an extra child, a job at the hospital, and a private practice.
Right.
Of course I should. Why not?
Yes. Right.
society also, because she's always telling me to take a break. But I was having this conversation with the neighbor across the street who went back to school for dental hygiene, and her schedule doesn't work with the bus. Her kids are the same age as mine. We are literally across the street, and I'm trying to convince her, just send them home with me for an hour. It's okay. You can come get them. You know, but it's so hard to let go. It's so hard to take the easy out, because if it's easy, if it's presented to you on a silver platter, then obviously you need to choose something harder, because you're not good enough if you take the easy help.
Yeah, right. And that might not be the image that you saw of yourself as a mother, right? So that's the other thing. Yeah, I resonate with that one very strongly. Yeah, I wasn't going to send my kids to aftercare because that's not who I was. I was going to be home with a plate of cookies, which has literally never happened. But in my head, that is the image, right? And if I'm not there for them all the time, like, what is going to happen when the reality is they actually really like aftercare? So that's a whole other thing, right? So yeah, I get that. Anybody else?
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, no,
No,
sorry.
no, you go, Jill.
Okay, sorry, Kendra. Yeah, I think I agree with all these things, and the social media thing, I think, is a big one. And you know, it's, my gosh, it's so easy to compare with that. But I think having expectations of the expectations that we had of ourselves prior to having kids, you know, like keeping that carrying into, it's like, well, I should be able to do all of these things that I did and accomplished as a person before I had kids. Why can't I just continue that now with having kids? That's a big one. So
totally. Yeah. And Kendra, yeah, go ahead, Kendra. I was going to start saying all the ones that are in the text, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, mine was just about external pressures, but expectations that my peers kind of put on themselves. And so then you start to internalize it. And I have to remember that the way that we do things isn't the way that everybody does them. And I think a lot of it is gender based. I mean, being a woman, and they think, you know, my peers think that I should be the one doing all the stuff. And I'm like, well, that's not how my relationship is. So,
Yep. Yeah. Yafi says to pile on Kendra's intercultural gender norms in mixed marriages. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Holly said, they come from within and outside ourselves too. And Dina, let's see, our inner critic can be so loud. Yeah. So many expectations and where they come from. All right, I will get used to Canva and how I have to advance things. So one of the expectations that came to me right away when I was thinking about this was our expectations of the world. And for me, and I feel like this might be true of many others, I expected COVID-19 to not be a big deal now. Like, I really was pretty sure 18 months and we were going to be like clear. And here we are heading into 2022, and I find myself not very happy that this world is not meeting our expectation, right? And this was really the one that when I was trying to think about, you know, how to walk into letting go of expectations, this is the one that I feel like, you know, maybe even as a world, but for sure as people who live in the US, you know, many of us are expecting this to be done, even though that's not aligning with reality. Now, when we come to the idea of postpartum in the fourth trimester, you know, what we are generally talking about, I think many of us have had a lot of expectations around birth. Maybe not everyone in this call, but many of us have had them. And that often is because of the way it's presented to us, right? And I'm not saying that I have ever believed that a stork brought babies, but the fact that this is, you know, what comes up when I type in Canva for birth is a bit telling, right? Like, it's going to be beautiful. The baby will arrive. There will be nothing that happens except this beautiful baby arriving at your doorstep, I suppose, right? Like all clothed, no bloody mess, like really just perfect. When for many of us, our reality of birth was pretty different than that, and perhaps pretty raw. I think that might have been the thing that surprised me the most about birth, was how raw it was. And also that I didn't necessarily get to control all the things that happened there. And I think that that might be a wake-up call for many of us who are parents. That might be the biggest one that we have, right? Before we might have gotten wake-up calls at school, but mostly things were under our control. But that birth wake-up call, yeah, it's a big one. And then expectations around the postpartum. This is another photo that came up when I typed in postpartum. Maybe just for a minute, if you have any expectations that you had around postpartum, if you'd like to share. I definitely thought that this might be part of my postpartum, maybe not with the blonde hair, but pretty much the rest of it I thought was going to happen with at least one of my children, right? Yeah.
It's really nice that the family could hire a nanny.
Isn't that so nice? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember going into my time off work, and I worked crazy hours in a very intense role right before having my son. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to have 12 weeks to get my life organized and all my things done. And it's going to be amazing. And I had my to-do list, and I just felt so like, oh, this is going to be great. And then the 12 weeks ended, and I was like, what just happened? And now I have to go back to work and pretend like life is okay. Like, what is this? It was a complete radical shift. And the hard part was not a single soul spoke about what to expect in postpartum. Not a single soul. It was all birth preparation. It was all like there was some discussion around feeding your baby, but then nothing else was discussed. And so it was just up to my own brain to think like, oh, I get 12 weeks. Like, wow.
Yep.
It's interesting thinking back, because I had a lengthy fight with infertility, and I was seeing a therapist. And I remember when I got pregnant, she effectively fired me because that was my goal. Like, I was seeing her for infertility. It was no longer an issue. And she said, basically, you can just continue seeing me as needed. But I wish she would have said something like, okay, let's talk about what's going to happen next, because that's fitting, Dina, exactly what you're saying. Like, nobody talks about it, but she was my therapist. You know, I was hiring her for that. And I feel like maybe she should have seen that this was coming. I had so many risk factors for PPD. And I feel like that could have been addressed. And I have a little bit of resentment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know, that resentment thing, Yafi. So we were talking to the board on Monday, and we have all of our board members are very wise. This is great. And one of them was wise enough to say, when I talked about letting go of expectations, she said, expectations are premeditated resentment. And I was like, whoa, yeah.
It's true. But I don't know if she knew it was twins, or if it was so new in the pregnancy that it was really just a positive sign. But yeah, it could have been handled differently, I think. And hopefully she's deviated from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that particular thing is a lot of why fourth trimester exists, because I too felt like things were going to be so different, right? Like it was going to be this great time. I even after I had a second baby 5 years after my first, and I was convinced that on my maternity leave for my second baby, which was unpaid, I was going to write a book. Like, what the, right? Like, why did I think that was possible? Like, just completely forgot the first postpartum period. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just, there's so much coming from everywhere else being like, oh, well, the baby is the goal. right? And once you have it, it's perfect. Life is awesome. And even if I knew that it might not have been that awesome the first time, maybe this time I was going to get it right, right? Yeah, you know, I didn't write a book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I love this conversation. Yeah. So our expectations around birth and postpartum sometimes are what wake us up to the fact that, you know, maybe the world isn't living up to what we thought. Maybe we aren't living up to what we thought. And, you know, why? And, you know, I don't know if I really like it when people tell me to lower my expectations. I don't like that term, right? Like, I don't want to lower my expectations. That seems like, you know, not something a high achiever would do. Yeah, so that's my brain, right? With my expectation. Well, you should be able to meet it because you can just meet all of those. So there's a lot of pushback in my own brain. I don't know about you guys, but lots of pushback. So I think that that one goes very well into the expectations we have for others. I put this one on in here because I was trying to find an expectation of like a partner doing, you know, everything, because I think I had that expectation of my partner. And this was the closest I could find. There were some pictures of diaper changing that were very helpful, but this was the one where I was like, look, wearing an apron, look like actually peeling carrots without being told, right? Like that maybe that was going to be happening. And look, making Brussels sprouts and a turkey. Like, wouldn't that expectation be like super awesome if it were actually realized without me telling anyone about it, right? Like, for sure, because that's how it should go. Yeah, it never goes this way, but this might be, you know, a dream. And even the polka dot apron, like, I could go with that. I could be cool with that one. Sometimes these expectations we have for others, we don't even realize we have them until they aren't met, right? I find like this is one of the biggest things that I battle with, family in particular, is that we don't even really recognize what we thought was going to happen until it doesn't. And that can lead to lots of disappointment and maybe even relationships that aren't great because of that, speaking from personal experience. But yeah, we certainly have expectations of others, and maybe they're family, maybe they're of society. I know having a child who's autistic, you know, I had a lot of expectations about how he would be, right? Even how he would sit at the table and eat dinner with us. And those aren't always met. In fact, most of the time they're not. And that's maybe some of the reason I've had to realign a lot of these expectations and make them a little bit more visible to myself, because it just didn't work, right? It doesn't work. And our babies do teach us some of that, right? Like, I think that is one big thing that we sometimes learn just because things don't go the way we thought with our children.
Get his
Yeah. Anybody have one with expectations of others that they'd like to share? If not, that's okay.
This came up for us recently because I think it just comes down to these gender expectations that regardless of whether you subscribe to them or not, they're kind of like a default unless you have a conversation to get you out of that, right? So I brought up the intercultural thing because my husband is Russian, and they have very strong gender norms. And, you know, my husband doesn't subscribe to that, but he wasn't sitting on the couch doing nothing. And I asked him to cook. It's like, if I ask him to do something, I'm asking him to interrupt his work or to interrupt, like, it feels difficult to ask him because he's not playing video games. You know, I feel like I shouldn't ask him because he's busy doing important things too.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that one too.
I think that plus like relinquishing the control of the outcome has been a learning experience for me. Because I too am a perfectionist and a high achiever and a people pleaser, and you stick all of that in a blender, and then you hope without saying that they're going to do something, and then it doesn't happen. You're like, ah! And it's like, okay, if I communicate this, how do I communicate this? And then when I do, the outcome's different than I hoped for. And so is that satisfaction there anyways? And is the need met? And what is the need? And it's like this whole, like, I don't know, like snowball of figuring it all out and learning to relinquish control in the end when it's not the way my brain thought it would be.
Yeah. Yes, I love your blender analogy there. Yeah. So I could say that if I told my husband he was going to make Christmas dinner, which I literally tried to do this year, right? Like I attempted this. Yeah, it wouldn't look like this, first off. and it might have, if I had actually followed through with relinquishing that control, looked like styrofoam containers set up on the countertop, and that was what was going to happen. And yeah, and that wasn't okay, right? Like, because my expectation of it was different. So yes, I am totally with you. I think maybe the holidays give us more expectations than we maybe ever acknowledge, maybe even more than we usually are faced with. So yeah. Oh, the control. Okay. Expectation. Oh, go ahead. Yes, Joanne.
Oh, I was gonna say, spouses are one thing. I think I maybe expected that there would be some differences there, but I think for me, what kind of blew me away, like postpartum and beyond, I guess, is my expectations of my family and my in-laws in terms of just like being part of my, tribe, childcare, the whole thing. No one told me that maybe my expectations of that needed to be perhaps tempered a bit. I'm still learning this. So anyhow, just jumping in to say if anyone else feels that, I'm with you.
Yeah. Anybody else feeling that?
Oh yeah, Joanne, I can totally relate to this. My in-laws are great, and my parents are a little flawed in that department because of, we didn't have very high expectations for them as help, but we needed help. We needed a lot of help, and their expectations were that was not what they were there for, and it wasn't like childcare help. It was actually like emergency kind of help. And just care for us, I guess. And that was not what grandparenting looked like for them. And so they didn't do anything. Yeah. And so that was hard for us to lower our expectations for what that might look like. So still something we're dealing with. And I was just telling Jenny at our board meeting on Monday, this is something my husband has said we should probably do as like a therapeutic remedy almost with them, like that participate in what did grandparenting, what were your expectations for grandparenting, and so that everybody could like write it out. It could be helpful or could be not. Could be harmful.
Yeah. I think that's something that maybe we don't expect when we have kids too, is that we will have to renegotiate what that looks like. I think I expected my parents and my in-laws to behave like my grandparents had, right? And how I was grandparented. And, they're different people, but that's just how it goes, right? Like, and when it didn't look that way, I agree. It's interesting how that works. Yeah, I feel that one too. Great example. Anybody else? Okay, so now I'm going to go into expectations we have for ourselves. And I'm going to give you an example that is an easy one for me to tell because it's actually laughable, but at the time it wasn't funny. Okay. So sometimes the expectations we have for ourselves are maybe at the root of some of what our expectations are for everything else, right? And I'm going to tell you about an expectation that I have held probably my entire relationship with my partner, definitely since we had kids. And it's that at some point, I will be the mom that makes a beautiful holiday card and sends it out. And this has literally been like, my oldest is 15. We have never once sent out a holiday card. I will tell you this. And yet every freaking holiday, you know, we get around Hanukkah and Christmas, I am like, this is going to be the year. This is your year, girl. You are going to send out this holiday card, right? So this year, you know, we got to the point when it was like past the time I could have sent it. And I was like, okay, whatever. Except then we got on break and my kids are home and we're having fun. And, you know, we had done some Hanukkah stuff. And I was like, you know what? Look, I'm just going to let go of that whole sending one. I could email one, right? Like I could just, and look at how awesome I would be emailing. I am in the new tech age. You can do this, girl. And so I'm like, and we can take a picture like right now. And I had in my head premeditated this like for several years, right? So I also had purchased, you know, those jammies that are like all for the holidays for all of us, because, you know, that is also part of my expectation of what this should look like. So yeah, so I had purchased Hanukkah jammies in 2020 on sale for me and my son and my husband. And then this year I purchased these awesome kid Hanukkah jammies for my two little ones. And I was like, yeah, this is gonna go. And so it was one of the nights of Hanukkah and I saw that it was a beautiful day. And I'm like, husband, go move this, you know, sofa we have in the backyard and stick it in the right place. And kids, I'm ripping open their Hanukkah jammies and we are all putting this on now. And we were taking a picture, right? Because I was like, yeah, this is going to go awesome. And surprisingly enough, so they went along with all of that, right? Like they're all wearing their Hanukkah jammies, complaining, especially the 15-year-old. And my husband and my son are literally taking this outdoor couch and moving it against the back wall where there is nothing ugly, right? Unlike the whole rest of the backyard. And I've got on my Hanukkah jammies and I'm like, husband, go get the good camera, right? Like go get it right now. We are going to take this photo. We also had to move the dog poop that was like actually below the spot where the couch was going to be, because there was actually a lot of dog poop and one of the children stepped in it, but that was okay. It was all fine. We were going to get what I wanted, right? We were going to get it. And so we pulled out the camera and it had like no battery charge. So my husband stuck it in the charger for like 5 minutes because the kids were getting restless, and brought it out. And he's like, you only have one shot. So you're going to do this. You're going to, and so we got on the tripod and everything's there. And I'm already getting a little antsy and a little like, not happy. How come you can't get this charged? Why didn't you think of this in advance? Right, to my husband. But he's going with it. And the kids are cooperating and they're sitting there and I push the button and it's not doing the whole like thing where it's gonna, you know, take it after you leave. And so I get frustrated and take a different one. And then I like finally get it set up and I run over there and it takes one photo and then turns off, right? The whole camera turns off because I don't have any others. And so I'm like, I think that photo was pretty crappy. I'm pretty sure Luke wasn't smiling. And I am making a weird face and I just want more choice. Like if we're going to have this, and look at this up here. Like, what is with the neighbor's oleanders that are in this picture? I can do better. So I tell my husband to go plug in the thing again. And I am like, okay, we're going to do this again. Meanwhile, the children run, right? This is another spot where one of the children then steps in another piece of dog poop. The dog is everywhere. And I'm like, okay, well, this isn't working. The light is not great. We're going to do this inside. Okay. And so we get them inside where I'm convinced the light will be better. We have slightly more charge, right? Because I've put it in for another 5 minutes. And yeah, this is the other photo that we managed to take before. this one. Okay. And so I get it set up and I'm just about to do it. And then like this ensues. And I'm like, guys, sit down, dog, do what you're supposed to do and sit still. Kiddos, get in your seat. You have to do this, right? And I'm like slowly getting more and more like just a little irritated and not happy, but I'm sitting there with the tripod and this is like literally like, I'm like so close because we have a wall facing this one and I'm like, okay, you're gonna get it. And my husband is yelling at me to like push the right button so I can actually do the timer because apparently I can't do it right. And so, you know, we try again. And this is what the photo looks like. And, you know, the dog just will not stay out of the room. The children start chasing the dog. And I literally had a freaking meltdown, right? Like I literally just screamed. I don't know. I know I threw something down. It wasn't the camera, thankfully. But look at this face on me right here. Like you see how this is just like this sort of smile? That was like right before the meltdown. And look, they're all smiling. The dog is happy. The child is, you know, happy. But I just lost it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe we can't even get together for a freaking picture. Who are you guys? Like, I really lost it. I yelled. And almost 2.5 minutes after I was done with that little tantrum, my husband started laughing. And I was like, oh, that was kind of funny, wasn't it? But I had held this expectation, right? That like, for look at these Hanukkah jammies. This is several years of expectation that we could sit down and have this beautiful photo that I would send to everyone we knew to show that we were an awesome family who takes these photos, that we have it together and that we are good parents. And that's really what was under there, right? Like I had like chalked all of that into this photo and somehow that this would give me that. And yet, you know, my kids were being very normal. Like who wants to do photos in 2 different places wearing jammies on Hanukkah when your dog is running all over the place? But I expected them to be there. I expected the dog to somehow be like this perfect dog, which, you know, he is most of the time. But, you know, that wasn't reality. And I even think me, myself, not in that situation, knew that that wasn't going to work. And yet right at that moment, that expectation was that this would work, right? I would end up with this beautiful family photo because everybody else had one in my head. Everybody else did this, right? Like they kept coming in the mail, that comparison thing. Oh my gosh, look at their awesome pictures. Holy crap, theirs are beautiful. Wow. I'm sure that we could do this because we also are an awesome family. And that is something I need to prove to myself. Okay. So when I sat down and thought about this again, I realized that, you know, having an awesome family photo doesn't make you an awesome family, first off, but also that first picture was pretty darn freaking good, right? Like it wasn't bad. And why had I had the expectation that I needed more, that I needed choice, that I needed it to look more perfect, that everyone had to smile? Who knows? But it was there. Anybody else have something like this, or am I the only crazy one around this particular topic?
I'm just really glad we don't do holiday cards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. I will tell you, my husband took that one first picture and put in Canva a little thing around it, and he sent it to one person, exactly one person. So I didn't even be the one who got to send it. He sent it to his parents with Happy Hanukkah.
I was going to offer to fix the background for you, but that's really not the point of this post. And that's me adding something to my to-do list, which is the antithesis of the meeting.
Right? You want to help me with my expectations because I can be perfect, right? Yeah, no.
I want to help you, so I'm going to ignore my own situation and go digitally improve your family's photo because I can ignore my own issues.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know where this expectation came from either. Like, I can't pinpoint at what point I decided that this was what made me an awesome mom and us an awesome family. And yet it's there, right? It's sitting back there because why else do I buy these matching jammies? no one wanted to wear them, if I'm being honest, right?
How
Like,
about
not
just
even
to
really
and
me.
have fun in matching jammies?
Yeah, well, that could have been the goal, but I'll tell you, Yafi, it really wasn't.
Maybe next time.
Yes, next time, that will be the goal. Oh. So, as you see, I have a lot of expectations, even around things as silly as holiday cards, right? And I chose this silly one because I think it's easier for me to illustrate it. And I think it's actually in some ways easier to let go of the silly ones first, so that you can begin to let go of the ones that are, you know, causing you a lot more pain or just harder, right? Like it's easier to let go of one of these tiny ones. So how do we do that? How do we actually do that? I'll tell you, you know, I'm 44 years old. I've been working on this for a long time, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but there is a process. And sometimes I go through it super fast. Yafi, I think you were saying something about those judgy thoughts in your head about you should, or maybe it was Jill, you should do this, you should do that. Yeah, those happen to me in the car like all the time. You should be doing this, you should be doing that. And sometimes I can counter them and be like, what are you kidding yourself? That's crazy thoughts, right? But sometimes it takes a lot more than that. So there's some things that we need to do to begin to let go of those expectations. And one of those things is to actually acknowledge that we had one, right? I feel like that step is the one that was the hardest for me to even conceive of, right? Because instead of thinking it was an expectation, I was thinking, why can't I be like this, right? Why can't I do this? Rather than acknowledging that my expectation was this, right? Like maybe with my husband, why can't he just know that he needs to start dinner, right? Why can't he just figure that out, rather than acknowledging that I had the expectation that if the kids are home and mom is nursing the baby, that dad should start dinner, right? Like that is totally an unspoken expectation that's in my head because I know it should be done. Why doesn't he recognize it? But that first acknowledgement is a big piece. And then making room for your disappointment, right? So, you know, with that picture, like I'm sitting there freaking out. My husband is laughing and I turned around, like I almost turned around in myself and I was like, holy crap, you had this expectation that you could make this photo happen like today, fine, at any point, and it would all work beautifully. Like someone, you know, like a photographer had literally come and taken a whole series of shots and also had photo edited them. You thought that that was going to happen, right? Like, because it was true. I really thought that was going to happen, right? In my head, that's crazy thoughts, but that was my expectation, right? And then to acknowledge my disappointment about that, to be like, oh, yeah, I did have that. And what a bummer that it didn't work, right? Like, wow. And the acknowledging my disappointment part for me is maybe one of the most critical pieces, right? Because that's letting myself feel that instead of just being like, again, you're dumb, right? Like, I can't believe you thought that. And then the piece is identifying the want or need underneath, right? So why did I need this? Like, what was it about that photo that made it so freaking important that I was willing to like throw a fit about it? You know, for me, it was that I felt like that was how I showed myself in the world, that this is important, that we have a beautiful family. And maybe a piece of it was like, this is how I show myself that this year we're happy, you know, at least for me this year, right? Last year was a dumpster fire, but this year, you know, I'm happy and things are back to normal. I think a lot of us may have that need. And then the next step is, for me, forgiveness and compassion. And it might be forgiving yourself. I think in this case, I had to forgive myself and my family, right? I forgive myself for blowing up, right? And for trying to hold to that expectation that wasn't met. And I forgive my kids for being kids, and my dog for being a dog, right? And my husband for not magically having an extra battery for that camera. Because, you know, why shouldn't he? He's the keeper of that camera, right? And then landing in compassion, right? Like, oh my gosh, those poor kids were trying so hard to make their mom happy and were just being themselves. And compassion for my husband for holding it together and laughing when it was funny. And then compassion for myself. Like, oh my goodness, you poor mama, you have lived through so much. You have had such a year and you were trying so hard to meet this need that you didn't get to meet. You know, let me give you like an internal hug. I've gotten a little better at that. So I have a little exercise, and this is where your pencil and paper comes in handy. Oh my gosh, and Jasmine, yes, the family pajamas are so expensive and they grow out of them super fast. Yes, yes, all in there with that expectation. So we've got a little exercise I wanted to do the time that we have left. So let's go ahead and try it. And I feel like this is one where writing this down may help. I've gotten a little better at recognizing mine in the moment, but when they are something I haven't really taken the moments to think about, writing it down does help. So if you want to take out your piece of paper and write down, I expected, and then you can add in what you expected, right? And then I am disappointed that, I forgive, and then I land in compassion for. I'm going to give you guys some time to work on this. And those who are on Facebook Live, I think this is the point where I'm gonna pop off so that we can do some sharing. But right now, if you're on Facebook Live, you know, feel free to join us on the Zoom and go ahead and write these down. I'll give you a minute. So I expected, I'm disappointed that, I forgive, and I land in compassion for.